A homeless boy came running up to me one crisp morning, pressing a cold, crumpled piece of paper into my hand and whispering urgently, "Don't drink that coffee." My heart nearly stopped. I am Helen Parker, 67 years old, recently widowed, and I had just moved in with my son, David, and his wife, Clara, in their quiet suburban home outside Denver. I thought this new chapter would be peaceful, a soft landing after months of grief. But that morning, everything shifted. I stared down at the steaming cup Clara had carefully prepared, its rich aroma wafting up and deceiving my senses. It smelled innocent, comforting even, but the boy's warning reverberated in my mind like a cold alarm. Suddenly, what I had once thought was the normal chaos of a family home now felt heavy with suspicion, and a chilling realization took hold. Perhaps I was standing at the edge of something I could never have imagined. Over the past few weeks, I had noticed subtle changes in myself. I slept later and longer than I ever had in my life, often not stirring until well past noon. Simple tasks left me dizzy and drained, and Clara, with her soft, practiced concern, kept reassuring me that it was all normal, that I needed time to adjust after losing my husband. But now, each morning's cup of coffee, the one I had trusted, the one I had leaned on like a small ritual, suddenly seemed suspect. Could it really be the source of my unexplained fatigue and disorientation? The boy's determined gaze lingered in my mind, his small frame vibrating with urgency and fear that seemed far beyond his years. I couldn't just dismiss it. Something deep inside me stirred a long-forgotten instinct from decades of raising David, a survival instinct that refused to be silenced. I realized I could no longer afford to take things at face value, not even from those I loved. That moment, holding the warning in my hand and looking into the boy's fleeting eyes as he disappeared into the morning crowd, marked the beginning of a journey I wasn't prepared for but couldn't ignore. A journey that would challenge my trust, my courage, and ultimately, my sense of self. I knew then that I had to act and fast before the comforting illusion of family life became something far more sinister than I had ever feared. I began noticing the little details around the house that I had previously overlooked. Clara always handed me a particular cup, a delicate porcelain with tiny floral patterns, while she and David drank from plain white mugs. At first, I dismissed it as a quirky habit, something harmless. But now every carefully placed object, every subtle routine, started to feel loaded with intent. A chill ran down my spine as I realized that what I once considered mundane might actually be part of a carefully orchestrated plan. One day, when David had left for a business trip and Clara stepped out for errands, I seized the opportunity to explore the house more carefully. My hands trembled slightly as I opened cabinets I had never paid much attention to before. Behind an expensive jar of Madagascar vanilla, I found a small, unmarked vial. The liquid inside was clear, odorless, and seemed a little thicker than water. I took a photograph immediately, my pulse racing, then replaced it exactly where I had found it, careful not to alert anyone. Curiosity and dread propelled me further. In Clara's bathroom, I uncovered printouts about liquid melatonin doses, far exceeding anything recommended for sleep. These weren't doses meant for gentle rest, they were enough to confuse, sedate, and make someone dependent. My heart pounded as I began to connect the dots. The dizziness, the prolonged sleep, the unusual fatigue, it all made a horrifying sense. This was not just concern disguised as care. This was manipulation. As I searched David's home office, I found brochures for several assisted living facilities, papers detailing financial projections, and even a consultation with an elder care attorney about potential incapacity proceedings. My savings account, painstakingly built with my late husband over decades, was quietly being mapped out in their calculations. Clara and David weren't just planning for my care, they were planning to control me, my freedom and my finances. The thought made me feel both betrayed and enraged. Over the next few days, I carefully played my part. Each morning, I accepted the coffee from Clara with a polite smile, pretending to sip, while secretly pouring it down the sink. I observed their conversations, noting Clara's subtle tests of my awareness and David's tentative agreement with her plans. They believed I was too sedated to notice anything, and I allowed them to underestimate me. Every gesture, every whispered discussion became a piece of the puzzle I meticulously assembled. Through this silent reconnaissance, I started to regain clarity that had been clouded by the very substances intended to subdue me. Each morning without the hidden sedatives was a small victory. My mind sharpened, my resolve solidified. I realized that to protect myself, I needed to be strategic, patient, and unyielding. The house that had seemed welcoming now felt like a stage for a performance I would no longer be a passive part of. I understood then that gathering evidence was not just about proving a point, it was about survival. I had to confront the reality of their intentions with undeniable proof. This was no longer just about coffee or curiosity. It was about reclaiming my life before it was irreversibly taken from me. That weekend, when David returned home from his trip, I knew it was time to end the deceit once and for all. I dressed in the navy blue dress my late husband had always loved. Its familiar fabric gave me a sense of strength and dignity I hadn't felt in weeks. Clara, as usual, tried to maintain her practiced smile as she handed me my morning coffee, but I didn't even pretend to sip this time. I simply carried the cup to the sink, poured it out, and rinsed it thoroughly, a small but deliberate gesture, reclaiming my control. I sat down at the kitchen table, my phone ready, photographs and evidence lined up in the gallery, and waited. Clara hesitated, sensing the shift, but I began my confrontation calmly and methodically. I laid out the evidence one by one: the small vial of liquid melatonin, the printouts on excessive doses for sedation brochures and documents from assisted living facilities, and my financial spreadsheets that had been quietly scrutinized without my knowledge. At first, Clara denied everything, her voice tight and defensive. But as she saw the determination in my eyes and the growing concern in David's cracks began to show in her facade, David looked between us, confusion and disbelief washing over his face. The realization slowly dawned on him: his wife had not only manipulated his mother, but had plotted to control her life and finances under the guise of concern. He struggled to comprehend that the woman he trusted most had orchestrated such a plan, using sedatives to make his mother appear dependent. Clara tried to justify herself, claiming she was helping me adjust, that it was for my own good, and that David had approved every step, but her words were hollow. There was no hiding the evidence now. Every photograph, every document, every calculated plan I had gathered pressed her into a corner. The kitchen, which had once felt like a home, now seemed like a courtroom, and I was both judge and prosecutor. The tension in the room was electric. David's eyes darted from his mother to his wife, torn between disbelief and horror. Clara's carefully maintained composure was slipping. Her hands shook slightly as she gestured, trying to regain control of a situation that was clearly out of her hands. I remained steady, speaking with a calm authority that left no room for further excuses. "If this plan continues," I said, my voice low but firm, "there will be legal consequences. This ends now." The silence that followed was almost suffocating. Clara's attempts at manipulation were powerless against the clarity of the truth. David sat frozen, a man confronting the shocking actions of someone he loved, and I felt the bittersweet satisfaction of finally reclaiming my agency. This confrontation, though tense and painful, marked the turning point. I was no longer a passive participant in their schemes. I was awake, aware, and ready to protect myself and my future. Ethan, the 11-year-old homeless boy, emerged as an unexpected and quietly heroic figure in my life. Despite his small size and fragile appearance, there was a resolve in him that immediately commanded respect. Having endured abuse in his previous foster home, he possessed a unique awareness and an uncanny ability to recognize the same controlling behaviors that Clara had been using against me. When he handed me that crumpled note warning me not to drink the coffee, it wasn't just a simple message, it was a lifeline. Without his intervention, I might have continued to fall into the trap Clara had carefully laid, unaware of the danger that had been brewing in my own kitchen. Ethan's courage didn't stop with saving me. His observations and the details he had noted became invaluable evidence that helped law enforcement investigate a troubling network of child abuse. It turned out that his former foster family had been administering sedatives to multiple children to keep them compliant, and his testimony helped bring justice to those who had suffered in silence. Knowing that one small act of bravery could ripple out to protect so many others was both humbling and inspiring, reinforcing my belief that courage can come from the most unexpected places. During this period, David and I began the delicate work of rebuilding our relationship. The shock of Clara's betrayal had left deep cracks between us, but sharing the truth, openly acknowledging our fears, and supporting one another through the aftermath created a renewed sense of connection. Our conversations were slower and more thoughtful than before, filled with moments of quiet reflection and tentative laughter. For the first time in months, our home began to feel like a place of trust rather than tension, and that sense of safety allowed us to focus on healing rather than dwelling on the past. Recognizing that Ethan needed more than temporary refuge, we made the decision to adopt him. Transforming our home into a nurturing, stable environment was not only an act of care for Ethan, but also a profound step in our own recovery. His presence brought a renewed energy to our daily lives. The laughter, the questions, the curiosity, and even the occasional mischief created an atmosphere of life and warmth that had been missing for far too long. Slowly, our house, once weighed down by deception and fear, became a place where trust and love could flourish once more. This chapter of our lives taught me enduring lessons about courage, compassion, and the power of choice. True bravery is not always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it comes from a small hand extended at the right moment. Families are not simply defined by blood, they are built through intentional acts of protection, understanding, and care. Ethan's courage saved not only my life, but also helped restore hope, purpose, and connection to our family. By opening our hearts to him, David and I created a household grounded in love, respect, and shared responsibility, proving that even after betrayal and hardship, new bonds can emerge stronger, richer, and more meaningful than before. Reflecting on everything that has happened, I have realized some of the most important lessons of my life. First and foremost, always trust your intuition. That inner voice, that subtle nudge, can be the difference between safety and danger. In my case, it came from Ethan, a brave and observant child I had never met before. He noticed something I could not, and his courage saved me from a situation that could have been catastrophic. A warning, no matter how small, no matter who it comes from, a stranger, a child, or someone unexpected, can be life-saving. I have learned to honor those instincts and not dismiss them because they are often our first line of defense against harm. Second, maintaining control over your own life and finances is not just wise, it is essential. Even those closest to us can act in their own interest if they perceive us as vulnerable. The experience with Clara and David's initial complicity taught me that independence is a form of self-respect and protection. It is not about mistrust, but about being aware and ensuring that your well-being cannot be compromised. Safeguarding your autonomy, keeping track of your finances, and asserting your personal boundaries are acts of strength that every woman, especially as we grow older, deserves to practice. I have also learned that family is defined by far more than blood. True family comes from honesty, loyalty, and the conscious choice to protect and care for one another. David and I rebuilt our relationship not because circumstances forced us to, but because we chose to. And that choice has made our bond stronger than it ever was before. Families are built through deliberate acts of love, empathy, and accountability, not merely obligation. Protecting and supporting each other, even in the face of betrayal or hardship, is what truly defines a family. Perhaps the most profound lesson I have learned is the power of courage and timely action. Confronting uncomfortable truths, standing up for oneself, and protecting the people we care about requires bravery, but the alternative, inaction, can have devastating consequences. By acting decisively and strategically, I reclaimed my life, exposed deceit, and ensured that justice could prevail. Courage is not always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it is quiet, steady, and resolute. Choosing to act when it matters most is what creates meaningful change. Today, our lives are filled with hope and renewed purpose. David, Ethan, and I have built a family founded on love, trust, and mutual protection. Our home is once again a place of warmth, laughter, and security. Ethan, once a child living alone on the streets, now has a family who values him and celebrates his courage and resilience. His presence reminds us that bravery can come from the most unexpected places, and that a single act of kindness or vigilance can change lives in ways we might never fully realize. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my story. If this video touched your heart, inspired you, or made you think, please like, share, and comment below. Your voice matters. And don't forget to subscribe to Real Her Stories for more tales of courage, resilience, and hope. Life may challenge us in ways we never expect, but with awareness, love, and determination, we can face even the darkest moments and emerge stronger, wiser, and more compassionate. Remember, protecting yourself, trusting your instincts, and surrounding yourself with people who truly care are among the most powerful acts of love you can offer both to yourself and to those you hold dear. Life is fragile, but courage, compassion, and integrity can create a foundation that sustains you through any storm. This is my story, and I hope it inspires you to trust yourself, stand firm, and embrace the family you choose to nurture and protect.